Welcome back for another video. Today we're going to be talking about 2023's fantasy football most overrated players and players you should avoid. I put together a list of 5 players. I think for the most part, a lot of the rankings were pretty good, nothing too crazy, some things I disagreed with. But the ones that are on my list are guys that I think are going far too high for what you're going to get from this year. We're going to start with Breece Hall, who is overall going 22nd. He is currently running back 10 in ESPN leagues. And the reason I have Breece Hall on this list is because Breece Hall may not even start the season. All right, you're drafting him to be your RB1, and he might not even start the season. He might not start the season, obviously, because the ACL injury last season happened in week 7. That's about midway through the season. So while he might be back before the midpoint of the 2023 season, there's a good chance that when he does come back, he's not going to be Breece Hall that he was last year. There's a good chance he's not that guy for the entirety of the season, right? And when you're thinking about your fantasy lineup, when you get Breece Hall back, right? Let's say he comes back in week 7 of this season. He comes back. You drafted him to be your RB1, so you're in a tough spot for those first 6 weeks. Then you get him back, and he's putting up flex numbers for 5 or 6 weeks. By that time, you were already in a tough spot. Your RB1 isn't really giving you the value a draft pick should at that position, and now you're in a position where you're probably not making the playoffs. And if you do make the playoffs, it's unlikely you're making a championship run with Breece Hall unless he turns in to the Breece Hall that he was before he got injured. Right. So with all that, everything that comes from the injury, you also have to take into account that there's also 3 other running backs on the roster that have been the feature running back at different times because of injuries or circumstances that have happened over the last few years. Right. So they're comfortable with other running backs. Robert Saleh doesn't mind using the other running backs. So Breece Hall is being drafted too high for me this year. It's somebody that I'm going to be avoiding. Somebody else is going to take him high, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Now, there's a wide receiver being drafted right around the same position, and that's going to be DK Metcalf, who's going 27th overall as wide receiver 12. You look at what he did last year, he set career highs with 90 catches and 141 targets. He's on this list for me, though, because I think those numbers are probably going to all go down with the additions of Jackson Smith and Jigba and Zach Charbonnet. Zach Charbonnet is a running back, but a pass catching running back. He's going to be taking some targets away when Geno Smith is looking to get the ball out quick. Okay, then you look further than that. Last year, DK Metcalf had 9 more end zone targets than anybody else in the league. That equated to only 6 total touchdowns last season. Not all those were in the red zone. So the efficiency for DK Metcalf in the red zone is bad, whether that's him or the quarterback or both. The efficiency just isn't there. You have to assume with Jackson Smith and Jigba and with what his role is being primarily a slot guy, he's going to get a lot of the end zone targets. Zach Charbonnet could factor in as a guy getting some end zone targets. So while I think DK Metcalf is a really good player and he never misses game, which is great, he has not missed a single game in the last 2 years. That's great, and he's always going to be a threat. He's a physical specimen. He's going to be a threat. But I just don't expect him to bring the value to people that he's being picked at right now. He's more of a 5th round pick for me, if I'm being honest. Maybe even just a little bit later. Maybe a 6th. I just don't see a 3rd round pick being a good value for DK Metcalf in 2023. All right, going back to running back and staying in the 3rd round, we're looking at Travis Etienne, who is currently 23rd overall and running back 11. Now, when you look at the situation here in Jacksonville, they just drafted Tank Bigsby, and he is, in my opinion, too good not to be splitting reps with Travis Etienne. Like Travis Etienne, when you think about the split, it'll probably be, 60-40 Etienne to Bigsby. But even still, that's a big chunk being carved out by Tank Bigsby. And I think that's what's most likely. And then you think further than that, not only is he splitting reps like that, but there's also a great quarterback in Trevor Lawrence and a really good receiving core there in Jacksonville. And they're going to look to utilize that. You don't pay all these guys and then not use them. They're going to be passing the ball a decent bit there in Jacksonville. And that's going to affect Travis Etienne's value. Now, of course, he's a pass catching back. He's going to have a role in the passing game. So that's going to add to his value. but getting Calvin Ridley in that Jacksonville lineup while having all the receivers they already have there, that's going to take away from it. So I think what we saw from Travis Etienne last year, well, I think from what he brings to that football team, he can be a better value to them. I think from a fantasy perspective, his value is going to be down this year, which is why I'm down on him. He's another guy that I'm thinking, more fourth or fifth round, RB2 kind of guy, but he's being drafted as an RB1. And I think that's a mistake in 2023. Now, the last wide receiver I have on this list is Michael Pittman Jr., who's currently 68th overall and wide receiver 32. Now, he's being drafted as a flex option. So why do I have him on this list? Because I think there are other flex options that you can get instead of drafting Michael Pittman Jr. And if you watch this channel, you know I'm a Colts fan. So it sucks to say that, but I just think when you look at it, his volume could be down because of course, Anthony Richardson being a running quarterback. And the Colts generally run the ball a pretty good bit, especially with Shane Steichen coming in. The offense that he runs is a pretty balanced offense, so I wouldn't expect him to be passing a whole lot, especially not as much as last year. All right, and beyond that, they also have more weapons. Obviously, Alec Pierce is still there. They hope to get more of the tight ends involved with Jelani Woods and Kyle Granson, right? And obviously, they draft Josh Downs. They get Isaiah McKenzie in free agency. They get Brashad Perriman in free agency. Like they brought in a lot of weapons. They might not have top tier talent, but they have a lot of weapons now. Michael Pittman Jr. It just feels like the seventh round might be a little too early for Michael Pittman Jr. Right. So when you're talking about the middle rounds, you really want to look at the opportunity and talent. And that should tell you who you want in your flex spot right there. And I don't think Michael Pittman Jr. should be the person that you're looking for as your week one flex option. All right, and the last guy that we're looking to avoid in drafts this year is going to be Kenneth Walker. And I know this is a tough decision. Having running backs on this list is tough because running backs is such a difficult position to figure out. I understand Kenneth Walker is very talented, but his value is going to be capped by the Seahawks drafting Zach Charbonnet. Right, Zach Charbonnet is a talented running back. Like, just because of that, there's going to be a splitting of reps that happens. I could see it being more, 65-35 in Charbonnet's rookie year, but even still, that's a good chunk coming out of what Kenneth Walker is going to be able to produce for you. Then you look further than that, the plethora of weapons in that offense, drafting Jackson Smith and Jigba, you have to assume that Pete Carroll and this offense are looking to get more into the current NFL and looking to pass more, even with both of these running backs that they have. They're going to be looking to pass more. So Kenneth Walker, his value is going to be capped. He's going to not be very involved in the passing game with Zach Charbonnet being there, and they're going to be passing more. I think Kenneth Walker being drafted in the fifth round, being drafted as a running back too, I think that's a dangerous move. I think you could have better options at running back too. I think if you're able to get Rashad White somewhere in that area, I would be more comfortable drafting him there than Kenneth Walker. Okay, so you let me know what your opinion is on all these guys. Let me know if there's anybody you think that's being way overvalued in drafts this year. Maybe if there's guys being undervalued in drafts. You let me know down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Don't forget to subscribe and keep coming back for more off-season content. We'll see you for the next video.